Hello and welcome to the Outcast. I'm your host HC. With me is,
Wolf.
and today we are here to talk to you about, I guess, a popular anime because suddenly seen a lot of people talk about this. I've never heard about this until Wolf said, "Hey, let's do that," and because it's getting a second. Apparently, it's already got a second season.
Yes,
So
its second
interesting.
season is currently airing right now. You can go
Uh,
watch
uh,
it on
And
Crunchyroll.
for the record, though, we are only doing season one. We'll probably cover
hmm
season two when that's finished. But we are talking, if you haven't read the thumbnail, we are talking about the ancient Magus's bride. So I already said my history with the show is basically Wolf told me, "Hey, let's do that," and I'm like, "Okay, let's do that." Wolf, what is your history with the show?
I just decided to watch it once and I really enjoyed it and really liked it.
So it was just one of those things that you came across at random. It
Yeah,
wasn't
well,
like,
I had heard of it and known about it before. I watched it for a little while and it just took me a bit to get to it. And I was like, I'm in the mood. I'm going to go sit down and just watch it. And then I kind of like a day later, like, oh, I've binged it all. Cool. And then I was left, I think that was 3 years before the season two was even, I think that was 3 years before season two came out, definitely. Might have been a little bit more, but I'm pretty sure it was a while back.
right? So I basically, this is kind of fresh in my mind. So non-spoilery thoughts first. I overall liked the show. Really liked it. Even
Better.
I like some of the themes. I like the two main characters. I like the animation. The world design is just beautiful.
Better.
I then again, I think there's something about the concept, or it is the execution of the concept, that it's a bit lacking. And you know what? Kind of jumping ahead. I'm sorry if it's gonna get annoying, but I might compare this to the Owl House on occasion. So bear with me. Yeah, it's your turn. What do you think?
I'm watching you.
Oh, how can you watch me when we are not in the same room?
You better be careful here. Talking bad about this show
Okay, for the
will get
record.
you.
For the record, saying that I don't think it's the best thing ever doesn't mean I think the show is bad.
That's fair.
I just say there are points that didn't mash together as good as they could for me. But I stress again, I really like the show. I would even go out of my to I would even say people who haven't seen it, watch it. And you know what? I'm excited for season two as well once that finishes.
Yeah, no,
I'm
that's
in.
fair. That's very fair. For me, I really love this show because one, it's definitely a love story, but it's not your typical romance story that I think a lot of people have come to expect or know about. And I think that's one of the
Like,
reasons why I like it because it's very different, right, in that regard.
mhm. Like, let's say I got some Beauty and the Beast vibes from it, but
That's fair.
not.
It's
And
funny you say that. They've recently started airing literally, Beauty and the Beast, the anime. So,
wait, really?
yes, it's called
Oh wait,
Sacrificial
isn't it called the?
Princess and the King of Beasts.
That's an actual thing. I thought you were talking about that show Bell.
No, that's probably that's a thing too. But like, no, there's actually an anime that has recently come out. It's been a manga for a long time and it's finished. And there's an anime
Oh,
that has recently come out that is literally just anime Beauty and the Beast, Sacrificial Princess and the King of Beasts. Go watch it if you want. It's so far from what I've seen, pretty decent.
all right
And
then.
won't lie, not too dissimilar from this. Although
Hmm.
so far I lean more towards Ancient Magus Bride.
Oh, all right.
But the other one's not done yet, so
No comment on because I haven't seen the other
no,
one.
that's
But
fair. But
okay.
yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. But yeah, for my take, like I said, I really like this. I really enjoy it. It's definitely not your typical romance story, but it is a love story, in the classical sense, in that it focuses on, character growth and relationship growth and things of that nature. So it's to me it's very interesting as someone who's like not a big fan of general romance because I've seen a lot of that in the past and I get how all that works. This does something very different, and I think that's one of the reasons I enjoy it. Also, it doesn't hurt that the animation in the show is absolutely beautiful. Some of the
The
scenes
animation
here,
is like
they look great.
gorgeous.
Yes, absolutely.
Like if you told me all episodes were shown in theaters, like that this had a movie budget, I would believe you.
As far as I'm aware, no, but could be.
No, I'm saying
Yeah, no, I get
to
you.
complement the quality of the animation.
Mhm.
Some
The
shots
soundtrack
look
is
absolutely similar.
also the soundtrack, like
Yeah,
the music behind a lot of the stuff is also very beautiful as well. There's some great scenes where they utilize the music in it extremely
and
well.
I have to say we haven't talked about that show yet, but I think from what I've heard, this is the same studio which animates a Spy Family, and you can and like they do just amazing job. Like depending on the set, of course, we're talking about two different types of shows here, but like in
Hmm.
both shows they're doing awesome. Like the animation is just beautiful.
Yeah, anything they put out is generally speaking very good. Like you're going to get it's very much eye candy. They're the same people who did, I believe, the first 2, 3 seasons of Attack on Titan, somewhere in there. They definitely
Possible.
they definitely worked on it. I know that for a fact. They did Attack on Titan. I just don't remember how much of it they did.
Uh, from what I can heard, it's either the first half of it or the second half of it. One
Yeah.
of the two.
For our audience, we're speaking of Studio Wit are the ones who behind this. So if you've seen Attack on Titan, that's some of their work. Early Attack on
Actually,
Titan.
I think,
Vinland Saga is also some of their work. If you like Vinland Saga
believe
and
it or
Ranking
not,
of
I think,
Kings,
uh, don't quote me on this, but I think they did the second half of Attack on Titan because I know that the first half was animated by another studio. And that's because that studio did an animation for a Sonic game, and that's not the name. So
it's one
that's
of the two. Like I know they worked on it. I just don't remember. I don't remember
so
exactly which
from
part.
from like the info I have and can piece together, they probably did the second.
That's
But
fair.
again, I could be wrong.
Mm.
It's just from the information I know.
But yeah, like
Anyway,
but other things they worked on, like I said, Ranking of Kings, Vinland Saga, and as specified, Spy X Family. So a proven studio. You're getting some damn good animation. If you're looking for eye candy, this is the place to go. Studio Wit is like, one of the places to go.
yeah. So back to the show itself. So apparently, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, but this is this is kind of falls under a genre of anime that's called a isekai. Is that how you pronounce it?
Ishikai? What?
Isekai. It's basically means kind of slice of life stories. Like there's no lore, there's no big story or something. It's kind of I guess the best example I have like something like Totoro.
Yes, yeah,
You know,
you're right. No, you're right. Yeah, I know what you're talking
so
about now. I think you pronounced it right. It's been a little while since I've
okay,
heard it. But yes, you are
yeah.
correct. Yeah, this is very much slice of
In case
life.
in case my girlfriend watches this, and there's a good chance she will. I know you taught me this a few hours ago, but give me some slack. I just said it for like the fifth time in my entire life.
Yeah,
But
you've got it
I
right. You're doing
okay,
fine.
if you say. I don't trust you, I trust her, but that's another story. But anyway,
Rude.
so I've heard people describe this as Ishikai.
Yeah, no,
And
that'd
on
be
the
fair.
one hand, and like I get where they come from because there is this kind of like episodic nature to this, but there's also very big story driven element to this show where there are character arcs, there are points that come back, there are carrying themes and stuff, and sometimes I feel like they don't match 100% with each other. Maybe there's a good chance that it's a subjective thing, and it just what bothered me not might not bother other viewers, and it might not bother you as well. But it's just some elements I think just didn't mesh as well as they wanted.
That's
If
fair.
it's fair or not, you'll
No,
be the
no,
judge.
I think that's a completely fair statement. Like, it's definitely, I would say, the thing that drives the plot here is for the first, I'm gonna say 12 to 13 episodes, Chise's development, right? It's focused very much on her and her development. After that, you switch focus where it's a little bit more focused on Elias and his development to a degree. But you do, I'm going to say, like from episode 14, 15 onward, get a little bit more story driven. Like we're not as focused on the characters anymore, and we're focused on a little bit more of the world and doing a little bit more with that.
I to some extent I agree, but I also feel like there are some episodes in the second half that are more character driven, and there are some episodes in the first half that are more story.
Like there's
It's
definitely, your couple here or there that are like, oh, these are all connected, and you can see the stuff in the background that's going on that connects everything together and how it all kind of comes
yeah,
to
but
fruition at the
I
close to the end. I would definitely
yeah,
say
and
the
also
last
not to
four,
delve into spoilers
6
just yet.
episodes are
Mhm.
definitely like one, story, right? Like the last 4 to 6
Yeah.
episodes of this season are definitely like one big story.
Yeah, and even if it's more like a character episode, it still kind of connects to the bigger plot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
And on that note, I want to say, if I may just say one thing right ahead. It's not spoilers yet. We'll obviously discuss it more when we get to the spoilers. But I just want to say that the two main characters, Elias and I keep
She
how
say,
do you say that's it's one of those names that I'll eventually get it. But Chise and Elias, I really love their character,
mm,
and I like because on the one hand you have Chise, who is like she's the human, right? She's like the human that comes into this fantasy world, and in a way she's the audience surrogate. She's the one we're supposed to connect with. She's the one that like she's supposed to be our way to escape to this world, but at the same time she's also the one with all the demons of her past. She's the one who's like beneath like the cute. What is she supposed to be? A teenager, I
yes,
think.
she is 16.
Yeah. So beneath this youthful energy and beautiful, if you're into that sort of thing, there are all the scars. There's the tragedy. There's everything, and then you have Elias, who is like, as I described it earlier off the record to my girlfriend, King's dad from the Owl House, but if he was in Beastars, you have this demonic character who, like, on first glance is really threatening, really, really empowering, really big. You're if you saw this thing, you would most likely be terrified. But he's honestly just an lovable goof, and like they said, he has the experiences of a kid, essentially, and he's just trying to figure out how interactions work. Like, he has everything, and the only thing he really craves for is companionship,
Mm-hmm.
essentially.
Yeah,
And to and the two and both of them contrast really well, I feel, and I just enjoyed seeing that.
agreed. Very much agreed.
No comment on how I described the Elias's character design.
That, I mean, it works. It gets the point across, I would say.
Hmm. Yeah, well, obviously people can see what he looks like from the thumbnail, so there's that. But anything else to say that's non-spoilery, or should we just jump into it?
I would say jump into it. Go watch
So
Ancient
if
Magus Bride. That's what I'll say.
yeah, go watch it, and after you're done, come back to hear us talk about some spoilers. So 3, 2, 1. Still here? Okay, so can we just acknowledge the fact that the I don't want to say the I guess closest thing to a main villain we have. I don't. Let me look up the name again, just because some of the names are. Mm, what?
I'm curious to hear. Are you talking about Ashen Eye, or are you talking about Cartophilius or Cartophilus?
Cartophilius.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear your take on that because I know a little bit about what he's supposed to be based on and what that name links to. So I'm curious to hear your take.
Okay, so for the record, because to those who are, he's basically based on the,
The
I
Wandering
guess,
Jew, I believe, correct?
yeah, the Wandering Jew, and and I guess Wolf is curious about this because I'm Jewish. So
A little
anyway,
bit.
no, I'll say this. No, I haven't really heard about the Wandering Jew before this show. Honestly, it's not
I
something
hadn't
that.
either. I'll be honest.
Mm, like it's not something like my girlfriend did. She brought it up, but like it's not something that's like that's been talked about
Mm.
in my social circles, or and it's obviously not something that like we were taught or something. So I just kind of figure I just kind of like, okay, it's a thing, cool, I guess. What I find, and in a way, I do find it fitting because you have this world where you have all those mythical creatures like fairies and dragons and insert other folklore creatures here.
Mm.
So in a sense, something like the Wandering Jew can fit into this world, right? It's not beyond the realm of possibility. If anything, I think it's kind of clever. What I find not necessarily bad, not necessarily good. I just find it funny to me that eventually they do say in the show that he mocked Jesus on the day he was crucified.
Yeah, in the show they give you the explanation for basically the Wandering Jew, right? Is someone who supposedly, criticized or threw stones at Jesus, at the Son of God, as he was being crucified, right? And so God
Yeah.
cursed him to forever wander the earth with immortality. But immortality within this show, and with generally speaking, the way I think a lot of religions view mortality, it's not a great thing, really, because his
Yeah,
body is
because
forced to forever decay and rot, and he constantly feels the pain of that and everything, right? And
mhm,
so it sucks.
mhm.
And yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
but
story of the Wandering Jew, basically.
I,
And yeah,
I
it's
just,
interesting.
but I love that because again, this kind of magical world, they could have just went with any other reason to not, but no, they had to keep the fact that he threw rocks at Jesus, and just the idea that Jesus is a thing in an anime is, if I may quote Kadikares, I didn't know Jesus was an anime.
I think there is an anime for specifically that as well. Like there's a thing.
No,
Yes,
really?
yes there is. I've seen some of the memes. There's anime Jesus. It's real.
Well, I guess we found out our next week's topic, but
Oh boy. I have to I don't remember what that fucking meme is from, which show that meme is from,
let's
so
look it up. We'll look it off screen. We'll look it off
oh
screen.
boy.
Okay.
Yeah, I love the myth and the legends and the stories this show pulls from, right? You have Gaelic here, you have Celtic, you're Irish and Scottish, right? You
Like they
have
celebrate Yule. They
yeah,
celebrate Yule. That was really cool.
yeah, like you have Yule, you have a bit of Roman and I think a little bit of Greek, not entirely sure on that one, but definitely you have
By the way,
Arthurian legend here.
this thing is supposedly taking place in the UK,
Yeah.
and I have to say the UK the UK has some beautiful landscape.
Mm,
So they nailed that down, if I may say.
I agree. 100% agreed.
Yeah.
But yeah, like
So we were.
I just I love, right, the myth
Mhm.
that they use, and then they also throw in like, oh, here's, things from like actual religions. Rahab, a character in the show, is a character, is a name at the very least from the Bible, and a person from the Bible, right? She's
Yeah.
supposedly supposed to be like the patron, or not necessarily the patron, but like a model for hospitality and kindness, right? And that's how they use her in the
Um,
show,
I guess it
essentially.
depends on what. It kind of depends on what Bible you're going for, because there's a character with a very similar name in the Hebrew Bible,
Mhm.
which is a whole. So small differences.
I guess it depends on how you look at it. I believe some translations at the very least see her as like a model for hospitality and kindness.
Yeah, because supposedly in that
I think
story,
she's always supposed to be like a whore, but it's supposed to be like, oh, she's still someone who's very kind and very hospitable.
yeah.
But I'm
Mhm.
I'm not super up
Yeah.
on
I'm not.
my, like,
I'm not sure how this business works.
religious
Okay.
theory and religious text. Like, it's been a little while since I've read all of that, I'll admit. So
Yeah, it's been a while since I've touched those texts for my exams, and I'm not in any rush to go back. Let's just say for many reasons.
fair, fair. But yeah, like I just personally love how it combines all that and says, yeah, these things can all coexist. Oh, I hit the mic. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. These things can all coexist, and they all can like share the same world. And I love how, you even see like the one of the fey creatures, right? Like they meet a priest, and she's like, yeah, I don't like you because, like she even says, hey, you worship the conqueror god, right? Go away. And just basically, snaps her fingers, and he just like, oh, he's fine. I didn't kill him. He'll just wander the forest for a little bit, and then he'll come out and be perfectly fine. But she didn't want him there
Yeah.
for that conversation, so I love all of
Aha.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's. If anything, one thing to also quickly say: some of the side characters are really fun. Like a
Mhm.
lot of the fact that that there are talking cats in this show is already a selling point for a lot of people.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But all the side characters were fun. My thing though is maybe it's just me, but I feel like there were essential. There was starting to get to a point where there were too many side characters, to the point it was hard for me to keep track.
At the very least, I think, they don't introduce too many after a certain point. I do agree there's a lot, but a lot of them, like, oh, here's this one character, you need to know them for like one, maybe two episodes, and that's it. The ones that I would
Like
say they
because there
introduced that
are.
really come back are Alice, Renfred, Stella, Ash and I, Joseph slash Cardophilus, and there's a few more, but I wouldn't say they're as important, but they do show up a little
Uh,
bit more, like
yeah, because there
Angelica.
are so many, and like there's again, that's the thing. There are so many characters. I just need to remind of nice. Remind me who the one that looks like Snape and can turn into a wolf is.
Oh, looks like Snape and can turn into a wolf. I don't know on that one.
Like there's the I let me
I
look
know
up the
Chisei turns into a wolf. I don't
no, but
remember anyone else who turns into a wolf.
no, there's the guy
Oh,
who looks
oh,
like
you mean, oh, not a wolf. He's a dog. Oh, you mean her
dog.
familiar? Yes.
Yeah,
Ruth. Yes, he's there.
Ruth. There you go.
You said wolf, and I got very confused. It's like, well, what? There's a dog.
I don't know.
Maybe that one.
I don't know. It looked more like a wolf to me. I don't
No,
know. I'm
dog.
giving you a compliment, man. Take it.
He's a black dog.
Yeah.
Specifically, he's a church grim, if you know what that is.
hmm but basically, I kind of like that, and we also has this very tragic backstory. I just love the imagery, right? That he says that he's waiting for a person who is dead, and you just see like the dog sitting down in front of a grave. That's really powerful
No,
imagery.
like that story was so great, right? Because it's like you genuinely believe for a little bit that, oh, that's his sister, right? Like they were siblings, they were brother and sister.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
no, he was just the dog in that relationship, and he just grew to really care about like at he called her sister, but they weren't siblings, they weren't related. He was a dog and she was a human, right? They were
Yeah.
probably like gotten at the same time. Like he might have been a puppy and she might have been a child, and grew up together.
Mhm.
But he was still, they were still two different species. And it's again like stuff like that. It's really great and it's really interesting that they chose to use the word like, oh, he's going to refer to her as a sister,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I think it makes that scene that much
And
stronger.
yeah, and I guess I know I call it over, but like as a dog owner, that does hit a nerve because, especially as an only child and stuff, my dog was kind of like a brother I never had,
Mm.
so that hits that. But then you get to and the other characters have like those really in-depth backstories too, which like with that dragon guy, that old dragon that
Yeah,
takes
Lindell.
his
Oh, Nevin,
one
yes.
last fight and everything. That's fantastic, but every character has those backstories, and while it's great that all of them are so well developed, it's also at some point when, and this is a long show, like it's not like 8 episodes we're done.
No, it's
It's
23 episodes.
yeah, the 24. There are 24 episodes, and at some point it's like, okay, I'm getting a bit tired, but maybe again it's because I had to binge it for this podcast. And keep in mind, people, I wasn't smart, and I thought that I can balance watching all of this and playing Tears of the Kingdom, which just came out at the time of this recording. Bad move on my part, but
You can't
so
date the episode.
I can and I will.
But this is one of the shows I would be wondering. Like, I felt really fine binging it, but I would be curious what it would be like to watch it week to week. And I've been
I
doing a
honestly,
little bit
I
of a
think it
rewatch with
will
some
be.
friends who haven't seen this before. And
Mhm.
like, we're watching it a couple episodes, you know, like I would say we have the time to get together to watch it on like Saturday or Sunday, one of those 2 days, sometimes both, sometimes not. And we've been watching like, say, I'm gonna say 5, maybe 6 episodes at a time. So we'll probably be finished with it in like 2, 3 weeks, but not sometimes less, sometimes about that much though. So I'm curious to see
I
how
think.
they'll feel in watching it in
Mhm.
shorter bursts.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I think maybe if I split it around more, I would be singing a different tune here, but it just so happened that I also had a busy week until then, and it's like, okay, it's 3 days. I can do this. I cannot do this, but okay.
But yeah, I would
But
be interested to
for the
hear
record,
from those who watched it episodic, like week to week, because I'm pretty sure it aired weekly, right? So I'd be curious to
yeah,
hear from those who watched it that way how they felt about it, right? And
yeah.
what their take on that would be. Because I will admit, it is a lot to watch and binge in one sitting if it's not like your thing specifically. Because there are like a lot of stories with many different characters where it's like, I don't know if we inherently needed this. I don't know if it inherently, like, many of them do add something for at least Chisei to some small degree or another. But at the same time, it's like, shit, man, that was like a fairly powerful story. You did really well with that, but fuck. It's like
Yeah.
just about everyone has one.
There you go. And for the record,
Like
it's the
Joel.
fact that a character has something like that, and we can we're not going to do justice to the amount of
No,
development all these
we have
characters
to at
have.
least talk about like Joel and the Lenon Sheed, right? And, episode
Yeah.
14. Like, that's a
Mhm.
really great story. Just, she couldn't love him. She wanted to deny that she loved him, right? Because if she loved him,
Yeah.
she would basically kill him. It's like, if I deny the love, then that it doesn't happen. But she has no
Hmm.
control over that. She does love him, and it does happen. And he's like, "Hey, I finally get to see you in my last moments, so I'm okay with that. I can die happy now." And it's like, fuck, it's so well done.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
not doing it justice.
that was heart wrenching, but And I think it actually did help that this was the first episode I saw on the day. So, or at least I took a break. I don't remember exactly, but it was. I was glad I was able to watch that one fresh
Mhm.
because that was powerful.
Agreed.
And again, we there are so many great moments in there for all of these characters, and don't get me wrong, it's a rarity for a show to dedicate such a long time and such good time for their side characters. But then I also kind of think all of those things just kind of vanished. You put all the heart and soul into those characters, and then some of them just might not matter in the grand scheme of things. And if we move back into it, what exactly was the end game for Chise and Elias? Because don't get me wrong, I loved them. I loved spending time with them. I liked seeing them getting closer to each other. But it feels like they are kind of on the same note throughout the most of the show. When you have, again, when you have Rat, when you have Joel, and all of those other characters, and they just seem to be hitting the same vibes every episode, probably because they want to do this entire weekly thing, the Ishake thing.
To be fair, I think it's better that Elias and Chise's relationship doesn't grow a whole lot in season one. And the reason I say that is because, it does start out with Elias essentially buying Chise, right, as a
Yeah.
slave, pretty much. But
Mhm.
now that's quickly like, that's not what I bought you for, right? And that's not what we're doing here. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Like, she chooses to sell herself in, like, a black market magic auction, essentially, because she wanted to die. She's very depressed in this show.
It's
She gets
I
over it.
kind of I kind of saw it more, not necessarily that she was but when her father just ran away with her brother with no explanation, and her mother literally killed herself in front of her, and no other relative wanted to have anything to do with her. I guess she most sold herself to slavery for the sake of having some place to call a home,
Well, it
because
was it was a little bit that, and a little bit, the auctioneer who basically, set everything up for her was like, hey, since you don't want this life anyways, why not put it to better? Why not let someone else put it to better use, essentially? And Elias was the one who got her, and he, and over time she learned to care more about herself and to enjoy that life and didn't want to die, right? But it's very clear she didn't want to live at first, and for quite a few of the first episodes, right? Like, they're pretty clear
uh,
about it later on. Like, hey,
that's
I
something.
did want to die, but now I want to live.
If we are talking about cheese, actually, for going
Mm-hmm.
more into it, I was when I started the show, I was kind of wondering how much are they gonna ignore the backstory, like her selling herself to slavery and everything. I was wondering how much, if this was just gonna be like a non-factor, because it was like, okay, we are now bringing you into this fantasy land where she's gonna be like your mirror in this fantasy world. Like, she's gonna be your the character you escape through. But actually, no, they do this thing where she still has to fight the trauma. She still has to get to realize, I sold myself and someone bought me and wants me to marry him. And she does remember everything that's been said about her, like, and like an actual victim of all of those horrible things. And the other thing I liked is that usually in those shows she would be like some sort of like a special one, right? She would be like some sort of a messiah to these people. But and turns out that, yeah, she can maybe do some magic and stuff, but it's also stated that she is very fragile, and there's also a chance that she might only be able to live for 3 years unless they do something, which they do. So I like the concept. I like that it's actually taking the entire fantasy escapism thing into in this realistic manner. That it's not just here's a tragic backstory for her, so that she could. No, this comes back. It's part of her. She has to deal with it. I enjoy that.
No,
I like it.
that's fair because again, like they're pretty clear about yes, what she say is and what she has is a rare thing, but it's not, she's not the only one ever to have it. There have been
Yeah,
others.
she's not the
There have
only
been
one,
others, and
and
there will
there's
probably
also
be
like
others.
yeah, and there's also like a counter to it. Like I said, that she has those things, but there's a but she but those things can essentially hurt her
Mm.
if she doesn't learn how to use them properly.
Well, it's not even that. It's just she will live a shorter, life
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
of what she is, right? The slave begging is what they call it in the show.
Hmm. Yeah.
I you know, I wanted to. I have lost my train of thought a little bit here, but I did want to bring up, um, fuck, I've lost my train of thought
Yeah.
on it.
You want to bring up fog. Okay, I don't think about the
No, it's not the right show. HC, come on, head out of the gutter. God,
You said it. What do you want me? What do you want from me? You said it. I'm just carrying on the joke.
it wasn't a joke. Anyways, what did you think of, you know, in a general sense, Chise and Elias's relationship?
Again, there's a reason I mentioned Beauty and the Beast, and that's because kind of like in that movie where you somehow that the biggest surprise you find is that you actually find it believable that these two would fall for each other. I kind of started. I got the same idea for here, right? You can tell that he's doing his best for her. You can tell that he really does. He does claim also he wants this companionship. He has everything besides a person to share it with, basically.
Mhm.
But you can also tell that he doesn't necessarily just see her as maybe you could argue a bit at the start of the show, but as it goes on, you can tell that it's not just because I paid a good penny for her, she better be worth it, but also because he does see her worth. He does think he does think somewhat highly of her, and there's an episode near the end, if I remember, where she says like say well she kind of gets this like and curse on her with the arm that there's a certain woman who needs to die instead of her, and she said
Yes,
doesn't want it. Yeah,
Stella. Elias
Stella.
was going to try to choose to kill Stella because he was jealous, essentially. And it's like, I don't like her. Apparently are able to be happier with her than you are me, and so I'm going to try and kill her to try and save
Mhm.
your life.
Yeah.
Like he didn't choose Stella because it was something important. He chose Stella just because he was jealous, essentially.
Yeah, but at the same time, he did this because there was some sort of there was a care, there was a
No, he
love
did want to
for
save her life, but again, he didn't have to choose Stella, and he knew, right, if he had told Chise, she
the
would
things.
never have gone for it anyways. But he chose Stella because he was jealous, right? And that kind of goes back to Elias being a bit of that child, right, and not being able to fully understand how he feels or
Yeah,
express that.
because you can tell that essentially his bride wasn't all that happy with that decision. She wouldn't have made that decision, but the fact that they do it, just aside, there was this motivation there that it was still a girl he cared for at the other end.
Mhm.
I did buy it, but that's also the reason why I say that I feel that their relationship is kind of monotone on the same and on the same road throughout the whole thing because essentially it feels like it ends where it began for me. Like I do get that they care for each other. I do, and you know what? I want to see it developed more in the second season. I think they're they surprisingly woke. But I also think I I need to see more development for
Well,
them.
I think again, right? I never got to finish that thought, and that's what I was trying to get back to. The reason why I'm personally fine with it, there's a little bit of development, but it pretty much, I do agree, it doesn't move very far in terms of their relationship between Elias and Chise, right? I think
Mhm.
one, they're very cognizant of the fact that, okay, this relationship starts off with a very big difference in the power dynamic, right? Like Elias has a lot of the power here, right? Starting off
Mhm.
with, considering
Yeah.
Chise's mental state, considering how they met, considering he paid a lot of money to acquire her, essentially, right? I think they're very cognizant of that, and I think if they move too quickly with the relationship in any kind of way, it could very much turn people off of the story, right? And I think
Mhm.
the writers and the creator, especially behind the manga, right, understood that, hey, there is a power dynamic here. That's okay, but you need to, as a writer, I need to move, and as a creator, I need to move very slowly to make sure that this power dynamic is understood and that the characters, over time grow and have the experiences they need, especially Chise in this instance, to balance that dynamic more, right? So that way things
Mhm.
need to move slower, essentially.
I get you. I get what you mean, and for the most part, I would agree with you. My thing comes from the way I see this season as it's presented, that it's not necessarily moving slowly. It's kind of just stuck on the same wave point, right? It's on the same level of speed. Like, it's not just that they are moving slow, it's that at some point it even feels like we're reaching a hole
And that's
with
fair
it.
because, again, I come back to, this is essentially a romance story, but I don't think it's a very typical one
and,
at all
and
because
there you go, and that's the other thing.
the
Why do I say
relationship
that?
is not the focus here. It's the characters that are the focus, right?
It's the character, but that's another thing, that you look at all the other backstory that the characters get, and again, nothing wrong with that. These are great stories to tell, but when you put so much effort into the side characters and forget about
Well, I'm
the
talking
main ones,
specifically
even
about
because
Chise and Elias's growth, especially Chise's. I think like this entire season is pretty much dedicated to Chise's growth and her determining that she does want to live and that she doesn't want to kill herself,
and it
right?
is, it is, it is. I know, I agree with you,
Mm-hmm.
but again, when you have to balance that and all the other backstories you give the other characters, which again, well developed, glad to have them here, but it feels like the trade wasn't the best choice, at least not for now.
I don't know. I disagree. I think it was fine, and I think it was the right thing to do personally. Yes, it definitely slows a lot of things down. I don't disagree with you in that regard. But I think the slowness of it is, one, the intent, and two, is necessary, personally.
Which is
And I
fair.
think it
Again,
helps.
this is why I say, that most of my problems with the show are like completely subjective. There's a good chance that
Which
it
is
won't
fair.
bother other people. And again, when I say problems, I mean like some things I would have done differently. But again, this is all subjective. There's no, you know what I'm going to say. You
No,
know the
that's
deal.
fair. A quick question for you. Speaking of
Yeah.
the side characters, any
hmm
particular one that really stuck out to you that you really enjoyed?
I think I think Rot, honestly, it's the design. It's the fact that it also hit me in the most personally. I think, obviously, talking cats, that's always fun.
I mean, everyone does love Ruth. He is a good boy throughout the entire season, pretty much.
Well, one, he's a good dog, and two, like I said, there's a reason I call him Snape, and also I think one thing that flew through my mind while watching this is, the guy who plays Kylo Ren, like Adam Driver, is that his name?
Yeah, yeah.
people love Adam Driver. Okay, so if you remind them, you remind them of him, there you go, done deal.
I guess that works. Yeah,
So,
that's fair.
okay, but jokes aside, I just connected to his story the most out of the ones that were in the show.
No, that's a
So,
fair pick.
but also, like, I also like in the second episode, there's like the one, there was like this girl who, who kind of instructs Chise, and she does scold Elias for like for all of his bullshit, and she's like, "Oh, he tricked you into." Oh, I liked her. She was
Oh,
fun.
Angelica. Yeah, Angelica's also really
Angelica,
great.
yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but yeah, basically, I just enjoyed this world and these people. Just, I think at some point I could have taken a bit of a break. But that's my thing.
No, again, that's fair. It is a bigger show, right? There's a lot more going on here, and it packs a lot into each episode more often than not. But
Yes.
I mean, in my opinion, though, even though it does that, again, I would say that I feel personally, even with binging it, I personally felt that there's a lot here, but I never felt bogged down. It never felt, to me at least. I understand you're different in this regard, and that's perfectly fine and fair. Not everyone's going to feel the same way. But it never felt like there was too much. It never felt to me like I was just, ugh, let's get on with it. I'm done with this.
So
It's
that's
definitely,
definitely.
for me at least, it's definitely one of those things that it has a very good pacing.
That's yeah. So like you said, I guess it could depend on the person, but overall, even if at some points it did feel slow, this is still a show I would recommend. I think a lot of people would love this show, and I heard that there is a big fan base for this. Like I've heard through the grapevine that people are like, yeah, you should check this show out. Yeah, people recommended this to me. Yeah, I've heard about this. So I'm glad it has an audience, and I I would even say I'm excited to see what season two has in store once it's done.
Having seen some of it so far, it's been pretty good. Can't
All right.
complain.
Mm-hmm. All right. So let's. I guess how long do you think it'll take it to finish? Like a month, maybe more.
Uh, I don't know how many episodes are in season two. Right now, I will say it is on its sixth episode, and it
Mm-hmm.
started in April, airing the first
Yeah.
episode of this year, and
Mm-hmm.
currently we're in May, so I
So
don't
there's a
know.
good chance that by the end of the year you'll hear us talking about it again.
If it goes for 20 episodes, maybe. If it only goes for 12, maybe sooner.
Mm. Well, we'll see. We will see. But anything else you want to say about the show before?
No,
Oh,
I just,
are we?
this is one of those shows I've wanted to talk about for a while, and I think since season two is coming out, this was a great idea. Since season two has started coming out, I think that it was a great idea to do so now. In the
Hmm?
middle of season two, weirdly enough, we're great. I'm great at
Yeah.
timing. Yeah, like
Hey,
it's just
there were
fun.
other stuff. There were
It's
other stuff. What can you do?
it's filled with, again, a lot of beautiful animation. The soundtrack is just absolutely wonderful. I love the way it approaches different myths and legends and stories from many different areas and combines them all together. And it just tells a genuinely really fun story for the most part. And I love the characters.
Yeah, I I would have to agree. So, I do have some pacing issues,
Which is fair.
which are also like probably just my general thing, but overall I would recommend it. There's a lot to love about this show, and a lot more to than just harp on it.
Agreed.
So take it for what it's worth and have a good time.
Agreed.
So with that said, that's all for this episode of the Outcast. We hope you enjoyed it. What do you think about the ancient Magus's bride? You can tell us all about it in the comment section below, on our Twitter, which is Berkcast with a capital B, capital C, and on our Tumblr, which is Berkcast Team. So until next time, I was HC.
I was Wolf.
And we will see you all next time. Take care.
Bye bye.